Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations and Plugs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wako. Welcome to Conversations and Plugs. And this is where African business stories come to life. And today we have such an amazing guest. I feel like I have known Esme. Well, Esme has known me for a very long time because I was really young when you first met me. And I have followed your business from 16 years ago when you first put it on social media. That's when I knew Esme has a business. So why don't you tell us about your business?
Okay. I run a company called Spez.
Mhm.
You guys have not told me where to look.
Just look around.
By the way, just enjoy the view. Look this side, look that side.
It just occurred to me. I'm like, oh my God, where do I look? Where do I look?
Don't worry about it. It will be all sorted.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So I could just start again. Right?
Let's go. Let's
Okay.
go. Yeah.
So I run a company called Spez. We primarily do corporate catering.
Yeah.
But we also do private catering. And in corporate, we also do institutional catering. So what that means essentially is we cater for board meetings, for trainings, for client events. And we also do institutional, which means we run cafeterias for corporates. So that's essentially our business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been in this business, Esmeralda De Souza?
Oh, yeah, I called
It
her Esme.
has been 16 years officially.
Oh, wow.
Unofficially, probably 19.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Unofficially 19.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're about to get to the legal age and kick it out.
Yeah.
How is that looking like?
It's looking promising.
Okay.
Finally, after 16 years, things seem to be coming together with especially people. So it looks like we're at the finish line. No, I am at the finish line. It looks like there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you start your business?
I started it by mistake, I would say, or as a result of the situation I was in. I had my son when I was 19 and my parents had just retired. So I felt that instead of burdening them with because I was going to go to uni, my fees and my child's fees, like I need to do something to earn an income. So initially I started at home, of course in my mom's house, just figuring out how to bake stuff. So I used to use books. There was no YouTube then. I don't remember them being YouTube.
Cooking books.
Yes. So cookbooks. So I just asked my dad to buy me some cookbooks, started making some cookies and some just very basic stuff. And then we used to have a little cafe near where we used to live in the shopping center. So I approached the owner, very nice lady, and just asked her, can I sell my cookies and my little pastries at your cafe? And she said, okay, why don't you try? So I started doing that. It didn't do very well. And then she said, okay, why don't you learn how to make a Black Forest cake? Because everybody loves
At that
a
point,
Black Forest cake. That was the in thing
Yes.
in Nairobi. So I said, okay, let me figure it out. So I'm like, okay, do you bake that cake with the strawberries in the middle? I'm like, okay, this is hard work. Let me just find someone who knows what they're doing. So I reached out to a friend of mine who was in cooking school at the time. His name is Spencer. And I asked him, okay, would you come and teach me how to make a Black Forest cake? And so he taught me. And then I quickly learned how to do it. And then started texting. There was no WhatsApp then. So it's texting
Which
all
year is this?
my friends and relatives. This was now 2006.
2006.
It was
Okay.
BBM. BBM was the messenger system at that point.
BlackBerry
Yes.
Messenger.
Exactly. So I texted all my friends and relatives, told them I'm selling a 1 kg Black Forest cake for 1,000 bob. Come one, come all. And that's how it started. So it was really busy with the cakes. I was also selling hot dogs and chips at Nondi's, which was a rugby club in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So I was selling, as my piles are parting, I was selling hot dogs and chips. And then somewhere along the way, someone assumed I did catering. So I got a call and there was a company having an AGM and they're like, okay, can you do the catering? In my head, I was thinking, gosh, I do hot dogs and chips and I do Black Forest cakes. But I told them, let me call you back. So I called Spencer again. I'm like, boss, you're in school. You know how to put a menu together. Let's meet this customer and see how it goes. So we met the customer. She was happy with the menu. And I said, fine, we'll do it from my house. It was close to home. And I remember that day was just so chaotic because we underestimated everything.
Oh.
Luckily, my folks were home. So they were cooking with us. And we executed the food at least. We got 2 of our friends to dress up in a black t-shirt and jeans. They were
Wow.
the waiters. And because of how much we underestimated stuff, my dad ended up being the one doing the nyamachoma at the client's office. So, and my dad is such a wonderful person. My parents are just unbelievably supportive. So the event was a success. We made like 4,000 bob. We split it. And then after that, you know, Spence was like, okay, why don't I help you with this thing? Because he had seen now, you're making money from my recipe, first of all, of my cakes, because it started really picking. So like, okay, why don't I help you with this thing and we see where it goes? So initially I was like, I don't know about that. But my mom was like, you know, while you're in uni, because I had just started uni at the time, he can be coming and doing the stuff. And then when he's in uni, you can be helping each other out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I agreed. And then we got one catering, another catering, and eventually we were kicked out of my mother's house, my mother's kitchen.
She's like,
it's enough. You're using my steamer. You guys, if you're starting this thing, just find a place to work from.
yeah,
So yeah, that's how we started.
that's how Spez.
Yes.
And what about the name?
So actually, originally, we were called Customized Catering Services Limited.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
Customized
mouthful.
Catering
Yes.
Services Limited.
Nobody remembered that name. In fact, most people wrote CCS. And then one day when we were at our first kitchen, which was a little ladies' lounge in Kilimani, a very small space. And one of the customers there, her name is Antonia. She's very good with branding. So I think she saw the menu and she's like, come. What you guys are called what? I'm like, happily, Customized Catering Services Limited. She's like, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So we went through a whole branding workshop, and she was really key to how we began the business, because we were very focused on what we will and won't do.
Yeah.
And then, the name Spez came out. It was a very Kenyan thing to do,
Very
joining the two
Kenyan.
names.
Spencer and
and
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
Yeah. That's how the name
It's
came
like
about.
very creative.
Yeah, I know.
Spez.
But
And
it
it
worked.
sticks.
Exactly.
It sticks.
It really
Very
sticks.
sticky.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Looking back, because I feel like this is going to be a conversation where we keep looking back and then I'm looking forward. What would you have done differently?
So if I look at especially the last 10 years, I would have paid more attention to people. Because if I look at many of my problems, they have been associated with people. And when I say people, I mean, I always talk about these 3 things. So competent people, consistent, and so there are 3 components: consistency, competence, and character.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 things for me is a secret formula that 16 years later I have come to find is what works for us. So competence is a really big thing. And my business has struggled because of that competence area. And it's a genuine reason why initially when I look back on it, why I never paid much attention, because I always felt that I've done it. I was not a trained cook. In fact, if anything, I'm a half-baked geologist.
Well done.
I was not a trained cook, but I have
half-baked geologist.
Yeah, I did finish geology. I left to start the business.
Yeah.
Or I took a break and I never went back. So I always have that hope of, no, if I can do it, you can. Just come and, let's do this thing together. You'll figure it out the way I have figured it out. But it's not worked. In many instances, it's not worked. Sometimes I overcompensate attitude with competence, but it's not always worked for me. In fact, we're at the stage now I can't afford that. So yes, attitude is a big thing, but I really need competence. So I'm appreciating that. So what I would change is just how I looked at people, especially around competence. Yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah. During our chat, you said that it's always a CEO's job is getting better people to run the organization better than you.
Yeah.
And that's still the people.
Exactly.
And competence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that quote has stuck with me. And I think I read it earlier on this year, because it also allows you to let go once you have the right people. So hiring slow is really important, really, really important. Sometimes it's not possible because of the situation you're in, but I'm really trying to hire slower now and then firing very fast, because when someone shows you who they are, you should just believe them. Believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you're forgiving and when you're trusting, you overlook a few things.
Yes.
You're like, do better. Okay, do better. But then 5 years later, your accounts are being frozen because you allowed someone to do better for years.
Do you want to shed some more light in that area? You don't have to.
So A lot of my financial problems began when I trusted someone who was not competent enough in finance to run a whole department. And of course, ended up in a lot of trouble in terms of just incurring a really big loss. And of course, when you incur a loss, it's someone's money. So it's either your supplier's money you're gambling with or your the carry money, the government's money, because you're unable to remit taxes because the losses was just really ridiculous. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons for me in competence, because I assumed because someone had a little shareholding in the business, they would know what they're doing and would have the company's best interests at heart. But the competence in finance was just completely missing. So I'm still carrying that burden 16 years later.
Yeah,
or rather 10 years later. Yeah, so it's that's it.
Carrie, Carrie knows how to do their job.
Yeah, they do. I mean, to be honest, I've met some really good people in the organization itself who have understood the situation I'm in and granted me grace in terms of period of time of settling the matters. And at the end of the day, my approach to Carrie is, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Yes, you might work in a big, bad building called Carrie, but you're a human being. And if I can approach you at the level of, this is where I am, help me fix this, give me some time, then it's been good generally.
Mistakes in business. I will just let you run with that one. I'm just like, mistakes in business, question mark.
People will always be my first. I've explained that. People can cost you. The wrong people can cost the business millions of shillings. Not keeping an eye on the numbers.
Not keeping an eye on the numbers. Okay.
So not keeping an eye on the numbers, and maybe I would phrase it as profit, especially. Because really, if you're not making profit, what are we doing? Essentially, our business is to exist, to make profit. So especially if you want to develop the business further over the years, and that's a struggle we've had with trying to find finance to just push the exactly. So not keeping an eye on the numbers, which is something I ignored for years, or rather trusted different people with for years, because my strength is business development, the creativity, the food as well, like the setups and stuff. So that's my real strength, BD and everything. So my strength has never been or was never numbers. And so not keeping an eye on the numbers has cost me. So I wish I had. I
mean, yes, I get the business development, but what weren't you doing with the numbers?
I was not paying attention.
How so?
I was not looking at the numbers.
Like literally?
Literally, I was not looking at the numbers. I mean, to be honest, the numbers I was looking at was the top line. So revenues for me, but as I have come to learn, revenues are vanity. Profit is chaukweli. Like revenues are complete vanity. So like, I was happy there. I'm like, I've secured almost corporates in Nairobi. I have the big names, the what, but wait, there was no money coming into my pocket. There was no money to invest in, equipment and stuff for the business.
Correct.
And it got so bad, we're not paying people on time. You're in trouble with the statutory.
But revenue's up.
Yeah, revenues are fantastic. So that's the only number I used to look at. I'm like, hey, good job, Esmeralda. Tuendele. Who else do I need to find in this Nairobi for business? So that's it. So I never looked at everything else. And I realize now that it's really not my strength. So competence, again. I need to find someone. And hopefully this time we found someone who can. And also having someone for oversight and just trusting other people who are competent to do that.
Competence is a big thing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really love food and everything that has to do with food. And a lot of in the space that we're in the country, catering, people say catering is something they can do. But how do you formalize something that it feels oversaturated, unfortunately, because everybody thinks that they can cater at a wedding, at a baby shower, but then getting corporate is, you need to have your staff together. So can we talk about moving from informal, the 3 years between the 16 and the 19 years. So the informal, moving to formal, and now taking the big leap to some of your clients are heavy hitters in this country. Let's talk about that process.
Very good question. Yeah, everyone and their mother is a caterer. And I'm someone's mother as I say that. But I think I'll go back to the branding conversation we had with Antonia, who was really key. Remember, customized catering services to Spez. So when we had a workshop with her, she made us really think about who's your customer, and we realized we cannot take all the business that comes our way. And so we were turning away business even as early as that 1, 2, 3 unofficially as we were.
Wow.
Because we realized our customer is someone who, one, appreciates good food, and good food costs money. So price point was a big thing for us. Like, we are going to offer you value. One, our food will be excellent, right? And then setup. For me, growing up, my mom was always really keen on how the table looked. So I was the one who was, my brother and I, setting the table, the flowers, paying attention to what was on the menu. It's not just like ugali and like when neighbors come, it's an event. We're not neighbors. When guests come to the house, my mom was fantastic at that. She was a proper host. So I carried that, of course, by default, and I thank God for that because it has become a really big selling point for us. How the table is spread. So our buffet was never going to look standard. My mom was a lover of flowers. My dad used to buy them, still buys, well, now he can't, but for a long time, he used to buy her roses every week. So on all our buffets, we have roses. Wow. So simple things that I picked from how I grew up and how we hosted is how we differentiated ourselves, even with how we did our setups. So it was all about what value are we bringing to the table. And then with corporate, it's about time. You can't have a board meeting starting at 7 and you're rolling up with food at 8. And many caterers actually get that wrong. You can't, and that's the main thing. Like, you guys, will you be on time? So it's that's how we sort of differentiated ourselves and offered value to the customer so that they can trust us with whatever event they're having.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about that. Like, what value are we giving the customer? And we've carried that for 16 years and trying to keep on, develop that. Currently, our focus is experiences. So our vision currently is intimate and creative food settings across Africa. And that is the vision. And then the mission is to deliver unforgettable food experiences with passion. So food experiences is big for us. So let's not just throw food on a table, let people serve. Let's have a nice joke. We call them puns before you come to the meeting. So even if you come from a really difficult board meeting, you'll see the pun, you'll laugh a little, you're already relaxed. Then you see the beautiful food, the flowers. You'll enjoy the meal even before you pick up the plate. So it's really big on experiences. What we're doing for corporates is also trying to do fun things, like to bring fun into the whole experience. We have now CEOs. It's a standard thing on many of our big events where we have a chapati rolling station. So we've had, CEOs from KQ and ABSA and Rubis doing a chapati rolling competition.
Wow.
So, and you should see how much fun they have. And some of these guys are really good cooks, I must say. And it's really entertaining as well for those who don't know how to make the chapati.
Yeah.
So just bringing in experiences. And a lot of this has come from feedback from customers. What are you looking for? So listening in. So it's all about value. What have we done to differentiate ourselves from every other caterer? Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
In terms of how you've kept evolving your business model. I'm sure it's not the same when you started. Of course, it isn't. To now. I was looking at your website and couldn't help but see some of your clients. Uber, KQ, Safaricom. How has that journey been in terms of evolving that? Because I've heard you say how you listen to your customers, glean in, and then I was so impressed how you are articulating your mission and vision. How did you get there? So business model and...
How did I get there? So it's a lot of... I mentioned I dropped out of geology 2 years
Half-baked
in.
geologist.
Yeah. So I did a lot of compensation by reading. So I read a lot.
Okay.
I read a lot of business books, mostly. When I'm tired of business books, I'll switch to African literature, but I read a lot of business books. I've also done very many courses. So there's a time in my life where any course that had entrepreneur in it, I took it. Literally anything. And it's actually one of the classes with, there's an organization called Wild. I think it's still there. And every class that I go to, I pick one thing. I may not necessarily, and actually it's funny, when I'm in class is when I'm more creative. So I'll connect many dots when I'm sitting in a class and learning. So it was one class with Wild that they talked about vision and mission. And then it finally sank in. Because, it used to be that thing that you walk into a corporate, you see, our vision is to be the best. But when in that one class, and it was even after a class I did with Strathmore, that I internalized, okay, I've understood. A vision is where you're going. A mission is what you do every day to get there.
Yeah.
So, it was just figuring out a lot from reading and from the classes that I was doing that, okay, this is the path we're going to take. I don't think I've answered your question.
No, it's actually brilliant. Yes, you have.
Okay.
Which is, I was just wondering how you are so clear on your vision and mission.
Yes.
And then secondly, was around your business model.
Okay.
Like in terms of how it's evolved over time.
Okay. So we started off with the small private caterings, and then we realized you can only have a birthday once a year, first of all.
Yeah.
So we needed, especially after...
Unless you're the queen.
Yes, well, yes. So when we first started the business, it was actually a little restaurant. So remember, we moved from my mom's house, doing the cakes and 1 or 2 caterings. Then we moved into a little ladies' lounge in Kilimani, where we were running this restaurant. So it was a spa that for women only. And they used to come and, after their treatments, they want to have some snacks and buy things. And then when we hired our first employee, we realized, we need to have more consistent business. We can't be doing this, one-off things. So we decided, okay, we need to have consistent business. So the first thing I thought about was, okay, we need to do lunches, lunch deliveries. So I remember that time I got a nice big poster with a simple menu and walked around Upper Hill and asked all the secretaries, could you put this up on your notice boards in your office so people can deliver from us? And I was a pretty young chick. So people were looking at me like, first of all, shouldn't you be in school? But also, just bring this thing. Sawa, we'll put it up for you. So people used to order the food from us. So the lunch deliveries. And initially, it was, again, we make the food, I get into a car, drive it, because it was 1 or 2 orders.
Yeah.
Then like, oh my gosh, this is not sustainable. We need to hire more people. So to be honest, the pressure came when we were hiring, because now you have 1 employee, then you have another.
Now you have payroll.
Exactly. Before we were still living in our parents' houses, so we didn't understand what bills were, but we needed to pay these guys. So, you come in the morning, you're like, wait, these guys can't be sitting here, reading newspapers. We need to get work for them to do, to be able to pay them at the end of the month. So that evolved now into catering, because people are like, okay, your food is really nice. Do you guys do catering? And we're like, yeah, we do actually. So the catering picked up. And then at some point, the catering was really big and we couldn't make the orders in time in terms of deliveries. So, and apparently at that time, there was some other friends of ours who wanted to start another company that was doing similar to what we're doing with the lunches. So actually, we're happy to give this unit to you of running the deliveries while we focus on the catering. And by then we had moved to a different place. So it's really evolved with the demand from the customers.
Correct.
And even with the cafeteria services that we were not offering pre-COVID, actually we started in 2019. We didn't initially, I was not very open to doing that.
Yeah.
But then we realized, okay, we have now we need to do something consistently. And it's also better for the chefs if they're busy every day. Then we can evolve also in our recipes. And the more you do, it's just 10,000 hours, right? So that's when we took it up. So that's how it's evolved.
What's the cafeteria services?
So we do, there are 2 angles to it. Some customers want us to deliver lunch to their offices every single day and then they pay.
Okay.
So the range of number of people is 60 to 100.
This is corporate?
Yes,
okay.
Corporate. And then others want us to come in. They have a commercial kitchen. So we come in and run the kitchen and the staff pay for their food every single day. And even with that, we try and bring fun. So we have themed days where we have, for example, we have a Swahili day and our waiters are dressed in diras and we have Swahili music playing and we change the menu to involve pilau and kashata for dessert. So we're like, so we try and also just bring fun, because you don't want to come and see the same thing in your cafeteria every day, right?
Yeah.
So
staying true to mission.
Exactly.
Food experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Exactly.
So Cliff has asked you about your business model. I want to talk to you about your supply chain, because we do know that our food systems are not as resilient, and you might find that something works this week, but next week it doesn't work. So I would like to know about your supply chain and how that has also evolved over time. And what happens if something runs out? What do you do? What are your mitigation strategies?
So initially, we just used to go to the supermarket and buy
Wow.
stuff. I mean, we were starting out, and
You're like learning.
yeah, we're like, let's go to the supermarket and buy at those expensive prices. And then I remembered our first big event when I realized this is not sustainable and this does not actually make sense. Is we had a really big event for Safaricom, 700 people, and I went to Nakumat, and they asked me, "Okay, where does the truck go?" I'm like, "Where? We're not putting it at the back of our dad's car over here. You mean the stuff is going into a truck?" So at that point, I realized, perhaps we need to stop buying from Nakumat. It was Nakumat then. So yeah, I mean, as the growth came in, and of course now, again, when you now pay more attention to the numbers, and you're like, okay, we need to make more profit. Supermarket prices are not for us as a business. We need to get supply chain and have suppliers rather. So there's many suppliers in Nairobi of different things. Now, as we're evolving, we're trying to support small-scale farmers more, but that is a challenge with supporting small-scale farmers because one, they may not have the amount of stock that you need. So we're trying to organize that at the moment. And going forward, that's something that we're really big on. But we work with what's in season with the vegetables and the fruits because each menu is customized, which is why the company was called Customized Catering Services Limited, because we wanted to customize menus. So it's not like we have 5 menus and tell you, Chagwe, choose from these. And we actually customize. So we pay attention to, okay, who are you serving? What kind of menu do you want? Is there anything you would like on the menu? And then do a menu for you, cost it, and send it to you. So that's still part of our process, by the way. So menus are customized according to what the customer wants. And for the customers who we have every day, like the cafeterias, we now also make the menus based on what's in season. One, the things are just fresh. I mean, when a pineapple is in season or when a watermelon or mango, mangoes especially, when a mango is in season and when it's not, you can tell the difference. Yeah. So we try and do that with how we create our menus. And yeah, we have suppliers for everything else. So the biggest issue is mostly around the fruits and vegetables, right? Meats and everything also has different suppliers. So it's just try to spread your risk across by having different suppliers for different items.
I really struggle with like food shopping for my family. I don't envy that process that you're talking about right now.
We have a very big procurement team that does that.
Okay.
So we're structured much like a corporate. We have procurement, we have finance, we have HR, we have marketing, we have sales and client service. We have a board now, an advisory board. We have a COO. Yeah, and all these things are really important because, like I said, people, and governance. Because I really want to build a big business.
Yeah. So corporate governance
is important.
What's a big business? Because I feel like what you're already doing is a big business.
No, I need. My target is Africa. I really want to expand outside of Kenya.
Yeah.
That was always my dream. So when I was living abroad a few years ago, I was like, what am I doing here? This is not part of the vision. But yeah, I'm happy I'm back on the continent. And yeah, that's my vision. Africa has always been. Yeah.
How did you end up abroad?
And
running a business
pandemic.
for the pandemic.
Yeah. So
and
COVID happened. Yeah. Well, there are 2 parts of COVID, and I try to look at things in terms of the silver lining. So for me, to be quite honest, COVID was a blessing because it was a big pause button that my business badly needed. We were running for a long time. Remember my vanity numbers? The revenues were very good.
Tick revenues.
Revenues are very good, but we were
year.
loss-making. Yeah.
Okay.
So COVID was a pause button. I mean, it was a shock to the system, and I think I was a little depressed thereafter. But I mean, at the time, we had 64 employees, 3 outlets, running, crazy running, not profitable at all. And then the world decided. COVID happened, had to let go of most of my team members because, one, I didn't have the money to even sustain them without any business, and we had 0 revenues for 2 or 3 months thereafter. And I was, of course, not on any. I was earning zero for over a year. So it got to the point where, as a family, we had savings for either we're paying school fees or my husband at the time was in the UK doing a course for 2 years. So we had money for, okay, we're either paying school fees or we're buying air tickets. This is the point we have to decide. And by the time it got there, you can imagine how much I was fighting, trying to just stay strong and just believe. But I mean, our industry was hit really badly. So we had to just, it was a decision I had to make. And I remember
air tickets.
Yeah, it had to be air tickets. And I went to therapy to be told. The therapist was there like, madam, vile tunaona hizi numbers, the way we're seeing things, you might have to just get on that flight. So it was really hard because you can imagine my business has been such a key part of who I am.
Your identity.
Yeah, a very key part. And now I had to let it go. So it was tough, but and I remember the the town hall I had with my little team, and I think we're 10 or 12. And I told them, guys, I have to go. And I broke down, and 2 other guys in the team also were tearing. And it was such an emotional moment to just say, I'm earning nothing. And they knew, because by that time, I mean, they knew where the business was and everything. And I have to go, and I'm leaving this in your hands if you want to. So it's a decision I gave them, like, listen, the state of the business, our obligations that we have to meet and everything. So are you willing to take this up and run with it or not? And they all decided, yeah, we'll run it as long as you can keep posting on Instagram. By then I had created a very big following on Instagram, trying to keep my customers engaged. So keep posting so people know you're still associated with Spez, and keep coming as much as you can. So I did that for 2.5 years from the UK. I had a team who ran it fairly well, considering their abilities, to the best of their abilities, I would say. Of course, 1 or 2 issues with some of the team members who I left behind, because as Kenyans, we just can't always do the right thing. We just can't. So a few people helped themselves to the very little coins we were making then.
The kitty.
The kitty. And
they were dipping into the cookie jar.
Yeah. The very small cookie jar. That cookie jar was so small. And it's unfortunate because some of the things I'm uncovering even now, this is months later after I've come back home. So, that's how I ended up in the UK.
Wow. So you came back when? This year?
January this year.
Oh, wow. And how has that been, the transition? The transition back? You come back with fire or?
Yeah.
Fire and brimstone?
Yes, I have actually. When I came last year, at the end of the year, I had a town hall, and by then the team was about 24. And I told guys, listen, when I come back, my tolerance level is going to be very low. Mostly because I had been washing toilets for 2.5 years. But I'm like, guys, no. But the truth was, I was coming back and this business had to work for me. And I knew I was starting from scratch. So, I said, I need to just run this business really well. A lot is going to change. I had given them the leakage, but many of them do not know who this new person is, who's come back with, listen, this is my last shot to make this thing work. Because to be honest, the pandemic set us back to 0. In fact, I say 16 years, but we restarted the business again post-pandemic. And for me, I'm starting the business again this January. So I have all the lessons I've learned. There's been a lot of tolerance over the years. So I had told them, I warned them. I told them I will be less tolerant. So unfortunately, some of those team members have left, but I have also gained some really good people in the last 6 months. And it's just worked magic for the business. It's unlocked so many things. It's uncovered a lot of things that were happening last year because now we have the new team, and things are just finally adding up. So coming back has been good. I'm very glad. I've not washed a toilet since January. But did we come back? I have not washed a toilet. So, but it's been really good to be back in the business. We've also grown. We're 4 times the number in terms of the team.
Okay.
Wow.
And the number of outlets that we have as well.
Yeah.
So it's, and I'm back to what I love. I truly love doing this.
Oh, yeah?
I wish I could hire robots, but I really enjoy what we do in terms of the business. And when you get positive feedback from the customers, when we continue getting referral business, which is how we've grown over the years, we've never put up an ad. We'll be doing that now. But yeah, it's been really exciting. Yeah, bigger problems because more money, more problems.
More money, more problems.
But I'm hoping the 16 years will guide me.
Yeah. Into this transition in this new phase.
I've paid very high school fees. Very high entrepreneurship school fees. I'm hoping it'll pay off finally this year. Yeah.
Often Cliff and I talk about getting into the arena, and that you won't know how the landscape is unless you're in the arena. And so COVID happens and you're kind of taken a bit out of the arena. And I'm looking at your name. Your business has your name on it. So how does Esmeralda separate herself from Spez? Is there a boundary? Did COVID teach you a bit about that? Yeah.
Such a heavy question.
I'm sorry.
Your identity.
Yeah, it's my identity. Yes, it did. I mean, it was really tough. When I go back to the first few weeks after COVID, and sitting at home, one, I discovered I'm a very funny person because of the interactions on Instagram. And maybe that was my coping mechanism. But I realized, hey, Esmeralda, you have a very good sense of humor. Just continue making use of it, entertain people. That's what the Lord has called you to do in this season. But it made me really reflect on what makes me tick, what made Spez so special. I remember once I was reading this book by Seth Godin, The Dip. I don't know whether any of you have read it.
No, I haven't read
I read that book during COVID, and because I was at that moment, you're like, well, maybe it's time to just call it quits. Maybe it's time to, and also I was getting a lot of advice, not a lot, actually, one key person who used to be an auditor, and he had mentioned to one of my mentors, like, hey, tell me to just throw in the towel. It's time. This thing is not going to work. So you really have to come to terms with, okay, what next? When I was in the UK, I applied for some jobs. I don't think anyone knows that, by the way. Wow. Hearing it first on this podcast.
Yeah. Like,
I applied for jobs because you don't see, at that point you're like, okay, am I at a juncture in my life where I need to decide, like, what does the future hold for me? And I was very ambitious. I applied for one role, which was the CEO of the Sherry Blair Foundation. I had never dealt with that side of business before, because I'm like, okay, it's either that or I'm going to work at Costa, which is like the Java. I'm like, either I'm a waitress at Java or I'm a CEO. Like, I can't be. It can't be anywhere in between. I'll be unhappy because I know what I can do. I know my capabilities. I know my experience, which is quite something. So, of course, I never got the job, and so I came back. But you come to terms with, okay, who are you? What do you have to give in this world? And then you need to realize, okay, do I have the strength to continue doing this? Yes, Spez and Esmeralda are really linked. In fact, some people call me Spez. Hey, Spez, Like, guys, I have a name. I know it's a bit complicated to say, but my name is actually Esmeralda. But you learn that, and I think that 2.5 years, seeing the business continue, despite, a few people doing funny things within the business, it survived 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So at a point, I'm like, wait, was I the problem? How has this thing run for 2.5 years? But also coming back and seeing the impact me being back has had on the customers. It's a dangerous thing, but I've also seen the business run without me. And I intend, like I said, I go back to that quote of my job as a CEO is to hire people who can run this business better than me.
Yeah.
And my C-suite team is coming together because I don't intend to do this for long. I've seen people whose catering companies have died with them. May their souls rest in peace. And that's not what I want to happen for my business.
Your funeral
like I said,
will
I
be
want
top
to build
because of all the food.
Sorry?
Your funeral will be amazing.
That is so evil of you to say. But
so
yes,
morbid, but God
yes,
bless you.
yes. No, I mean, my wedding was something else. But yeah, I agree. It'll be top. But it can't die with me. It definitely can't die with me. So now reaching the point where create a very good C-suite team, work on the processes, and work on something that's scalable. So that's where I'm at. So that's exciting because it's very different from where I was before.
Yeah.
So to build a business that's scalable, I mean, many of us engage with customers and we don't even know who the CEO, with corporates, with companies and with products, and we don't know who the CEO is. So that's my end game. So realizing, okay, Esmeralda, you have 24,000 followers on Instagram, your page has 10. First of all, get someone to manage that page so that the two brands are not completely, it's not one. I'm not carrying the brand. So I'm very conscious of how my journey has been and trying to work now to make that different. Yeah, to separate the two. I've gone very, very long.
No, I
love
love
it.
it.
I
love
understand.
We
No,
love
please,
it. We're here
go
for
long.
all of this.
Go long. We're here for the stories.
Yeah.
You see, one of the things I hear you say is Kenyans. Okay, I won't say Kenyans. I'd say trust. Let's get to the issue, which is trust sounds like a premium in our market. And if you earn trust, then you can actually earn profits on business.
Yes.
Trust in your business, trust in with your customers. What's that been like? Because I know you've been in it, both employees and partners and people you bring into your business.
Yeah.
So I want to understand the lessons you've learned in terms of yoking yourself with partners in your business, and as well as what trust has meant for your business, and just your lessons around the same.
Okay. Trust is a big thing. But I find that trust has to go hand in hand with something, right? So for me, trust and competence with regards to my team members, that's two really big things. We used to have someone running accounts and she was not extremely competent. I've discovered much later. But I always used to tell her, the value I put on you is the trust. Unfortunately, the trust was broken, in which case that relationship had to end. With even my previous co-directors, co-director in particular, it's competence, but also I need people who are very self-aware, where this is the level of competence I'm at. I am willing to learn from someone else, or I don't know this. It's very hard. Ego is also a really big thing. So it's really
African
hard.
male ego.
Yes, it's.
Don't
it's,
you just love it?
I don't.
No,
I personally don't.
I would rather not have it.
So ego is also a
around
big
me.
thing where people are not willing to say, hey, I don't know this. And I think that's what has helped me personally, where I know that I don't know. And so I look for the knowledge. So whether it's mentors or books or podcasts to keep learning. And I mean, that's something I'd encourage all entrepreneurs to do. You just, and one of my board members mentioned the other day, like, you just don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
So trust, competence, and people being very self-aware of their capabilities. So I'm finding myself being really pulled to team members who are willing to learn. I also are very conscious of what they're not good at, and then say, hey, listen, this one I can't do. I need help with this and this. We need to figure out who can help us. So trust and competence go hand in hand. With regards to corporates and business, to be quite open, I've gotten some opportunities just because I'm a Black woman in business, right? Or I'm a woman in business specifically. But when that door is opened, I make sure I go in, and as a company, we perform. So much so that, yes, I've helped you tick a box, but you'll give me more business because of how we've performed.
Of how excellent we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just excellence in how you provide the service and how you talk to the customer, that you're on time, because with corporates, it's mostly around time. So if you're able to build business, I mean, you can serve someone will hear we've catered for example, Safaricom for over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And immediately, all of a sudden, sit up at the table like, oh, you cater for Safaricom. But Safaricom also, as a customer, have also very high standards.
And expectations.
Exactly. So I love customers like that because they're also keeping us on our toes consistently.
So you have to rise and meet.
Exactly. So also trusting the customer, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
So yes, I've come into the organization, but show up and make sure other doors are opened within that organization for you. Yeah. So
one of the books I read that sort of changed my life was a book called The Trusted Advisor.
Yes.
And I like talking about it because in there is an equation they put together. They say that trustworthiness is equals to, the denominator is self-orientation, which is your motive. Like, what's your intention? That's how you build trust. So there's a formula. Then credibility, reliability. Those ones speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And then intimacy, right? In terms of, I need to build a relationship with you because, like you said, you walked into Cafe. They're people. You've got to build a relationship. And it's a trusting. Are you going to keep your word? Are you reliable?
Exactly.
Are you credible? And credibility is around competence. So, and that's why for me, trust is a premium. And if you can crack trust, you crack a lot of things in this town as well. Growing up, how's your childhood? Half-baked geologist, like, which means then you didn't complete university. Not like it matters.
No.
But what's your journey like growing up? Your childhood, your parents.
We had a very, very good childhood. In between all the beatings, like it was fantastic. We were very,
like sleepers beating or
belts,
everything,
belts mostly. I mean, we were whipped into shape for sure. It's just my brother and I have an older brother.
Okay.
And it was a good childhood.
Oh, yeah?
My parents were, what I would say is, and what I learned a lot from my parents is just support.
Okay.
So I remember my parents and presence. My parents were there for everything, for every school event, for every tennis match, for every play that I performed in, and of course when I was starting the business. So initially they were very reluctant because my mom is actually a HR practitioner.
Okay.
So when I mentioned that I want to have a break from school, first of all, as a Luo woman, she was not understanding how she's not going to have that picture of me in my gown on her wall. And she was like, she kept saying, nowadays PhD is considered the first degree. So what's your plan? But I think when, again, back to support, when they saw.
Your mom is Luo?
Yes.
Okay. And your dad?
Is Goan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when it came to, I need to take a break from school, and of course everyone's worried, including my lecturers, that I was never going to go back.
Yeah.
Which of course I
you like prove them right.
Yeah, I did. So initially she was like, you can't do this. Like, what is your plan? But I think when they reflected alone in their room away from me, like, this chick wakes up at 3 a.m. to bake cakes. Like, there's something we're on to.
Yeah.
We're on to there. And I love that they did that, because I would be probably very rich, but very unhappy geologist somewhere in Turkana mining oil. I'd be very rich, but I'd probably be very unhappy. So yeah, just learning that support. And I've learned that even as a parent, I really try to do that with my own kids. So we had a lot of support growing up.
Yeah. So happy family. And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't see any entrepreneur in your immediate circle.
No. In fact, it was so funny. A few months ago, when I went to see my parents, and one of their friends was like, Esmeralda, where is this thing from? Because none of your parents is. I don't know. Maybe I'll be the first of many in our family. Maybe I'm the trendsetter.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from, but okay, where it came from was the need to provide for my son. And that fire has continued burning for years. When I engaged it, when I continued doing it more, and also just a lot of what I do is in creating stuff. So, and that's my strength, the creativity. So it's exciting. It's nice to see something an idea you have come to life and people love it as well. So maybe that's more on the creativity than the actual business. Yeah, but also I'm half Indian, so. Maybe that's the gene.
Perhaps
Yeah.
that's where
Maybe that's the gene. Yeah.
Maybe. Because I find that, yes, I think for many people, many entrepreneurs say entrepreneurship happened to them. And I feel like entrepreneurship did happen to you. But what I do feel that from this conversation and the one that we had previously, there are certain competencies of entrepreneurship that you kind of inherently had, but it wasn't just in the box of entrepreneurship. Because I do think that you saw that there was a problem. Your parents were retiring, you have a young son, And how are we going to fix that? I also think that for me, what's clear is the value of hard work and the ability to be very agile. COVID could have broken you, but I do think it propelled you into something that we'll probably see the fruits of in a year's time, 2 years' time. So when I think of characteristics or competencies that make an entrepreneur, what's the random one that you have, a random skill that you feel has sharpened your teeth in this game?
It's something everyone says about me, and that's resilience. And that word for me equals just surviving. Like surviving enough to pick yourself up and move on the next day. That's for me what resilience is, because I've gotten hit from so many areas. By so many people, by so many institutions. It's always a hit that I get. But yeah, you cry in a corner, or during interviews for that matter. If you know, you know. And then you figure out, okay, what are my options, and let me move with it. So yeah, it's resilience. That's what has been something people have said about me. Sometimes I see like my current accounting team, the lead keeps looking at me like, what drugs are you on? What drugs are you on? Why are you always so happy? Even when we should really not be happy, why are you joking around? So it's resilience and just having, I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? So I don't know. Some people would say it's maybe a gambling gene I have. But yeah, it's resilient. It's pick yourself up the next day, figure out what options you have, and just try each one until you succeed. Yeah.
I'm interested in what next for your business in terms of, since you have a very clear, vivid idea in terms of your mission and your vision and where you want to go in the next couple of years. And also just stepping back, you're saying you're looking into corporate governance. So what inspired you to get help for the business? And what is that help looking like? And what has been the impact so far?
Okay. So with regards to help, and I didn't realize I needed it at the time. It was around 2019 when I was convinced by someone that we needed to raise capital for our business.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I know these guys. And these two people have been really fundamental in my last 5 years of surviving.
Okay.
Ken and Ko Njoroge. So they came on board and listened to what issues we had. And I remember Ken that day just sitting, listening, and like, no, these are not your problems. You don't need funding. You just need to figure out your finances. And that for me was the wake-up call to, okay, there's something not right here. And the value of having them on board in the last 5 years, and just value of listening to other people who have been there, done that in terms of the Kenyan context, has been so... It's changed the game for me. And that's something actually I wish I had done earlier. Getting a mentor for the business to guide me through this very wild journey. So realizing again that I don't know everything.
Yeah, correct.
So picking my current advisory board are people who have excelled in different parts of business, and someone who's also been in my kind of business. So they can relate to the problems we're having, and has been in and been part of big businesses similar to in my industry, in the food industry. So just not knowing that by basing it on the fact that I don't know everything.
Correct.
And I'm willing to get advice from different people. So
what's the profile of your board?
In terms of the people who are there?
Yeah, you said they've worked in different sectors.
So one has been in tech.
Tech, okay.
One has been hospitality.
Hospitality, okay.
The other has been also in hospitality. So 2 in hospitality, 1 in tech, 1 in marketing.
Advertising and marketing.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So interesting, okay.
Yeah. So all people who I have reached out to in times of crisis. And just generally to have, like, sometimes you meet people and you have such really good conversations and they just energize you to keep going. So those are the people I have currently. It may evolve in the next 1 year. We'll have more people probably, or I may continue with this same group of people, but that's the current advisory board that I have. Moving forward, like I said, I want to build a big business. For me, that's something that's more structured. Because of the sins of the past, there's still a big burden I'm carrying in terms of finances. So once that sort of levels out and we're able to then reinvest into the business, gosh, Africa is a dream. For some reason, I see a Spez in Rwanda. For some reason, I see a Spez in Ethiopia. Uganda and TZ, we'll see. Of course, we'll do market research and see what makes sense. But I really just want to, once we've fully conquered Nairobi, and for sure we haven't, because there are so many companies that don't, or people generally who've not had our services. Once we're able to go into the marketing and the branding and, be a business that everyone is aware of, make sure we've captured all our target market in Nairobi and then expand outwards. And then eventually, it's been 16 years of running this. I know that I'm getting tired.
Okay. After 16 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
So I'm giving myself between 5 to 8 years max.
Max?
Yeah.
Founder syndrome.
Wait?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 to 8 years max. Continuing with this, and then on to something else. It might be also in the hospitality industry. I keep dreaming about having a beautiful lodge in Nanyuki and one in Kisumu. Yes. So it probably will still be in hospitality because I really enjoy it.
Okay.
But yeah, it can't be forever.
Your dreams are valid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I want to arrive alive. Number one. I want to arrive alive. And I've seen, so in the last 6 months, I've seen having experienced people who have the business interest at heart and the magic that does. And I can't wait to see once I expand that more to other people, what that will do for the business and consequently for the people who are in the business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're in your legacy building years. I always picture that as,
considering the gray hairs, I think it's acceptable.
Yes, it is. It's acceptable for sure. We always say, work on your business or your business will work on you. And I feel like your business has worked you into shape, out of shape, back into shape, round the shape, and you're here to still tell the story. Yeah. I do like the fact that you have such a very clear mission and vision. And it's so clear to the extent where it's been seen in everything that you do. Even how in our chats, it just feels very refreshing to believe that this is possible and you could own and still be running a business 16, 17, 18, 19 years later. And so for me, I am very ready to see your next because I have seen you working through Spez over a long period of time. 8 years from now, when Esmeralda is handing it over, what do you feel like must be there? Must Rwanda be there? Must Ethiopia be there?
Such a good question.
Must.
That's what people say when they're thinking. I've said the right thing. So it's, gosh, first of all, we have to be proper profitable, like really, really good profit consistently. Profit has to be there because that's the only way I'll get significant value, right? That's the only way I'll do it. Gosh, Rwanda has to be there. At least 2 other African countries. At least 2.
Yeah.
If there could be 10, well and good, but at least minimum 2. And a really good business that's truly offering value to our customers, but to all the stakeholders, but primarily our customers, our team members. There are people who I would love to see them driving around Nairobi in a nice car. There are people courtesy of Spez, living good lives. I would love to see that. So the value for my team members, especially those who've been there for years and been through this crazy journey with me, I would love to see them walk away with some really good, having extracted value from Spez. Yeah. And what else has to be there? I think that's it. It's profit, which translates for having also something to show for it. I keep joking with the team, like, I don't have my house in Runda. I don't have my 5 cars. So profit will be value for everyone. Yeah, all the stakeholders in the business, including the people who'll join me along the way in the next 8 years. So yeah.
It's beautiful.
You sound like after 16 years, you're ready to shed, to get rid of founder syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough. I work with entrepreneurs sometimes, and you can just tell, like, the business is my baby. It's my identity, and it's very hard sometimes to separate all of those. And for some founders, they're like, listen, why do I have to exit? I don't have to, but you have a very clear idea of how you want to exit. So how are you dealing with that? So that, like you said, you want to arrive alive. So what's that picture looking like for you?
And that arrive alive actually came from my mentors, Ken and Koye again, because there's a program they're running called Comini that
yeah.
It's Arrive Alive.
Yeah.
Because they have experienced it as well.
Yeah.
So, I think living in the UK for 2.5 years also showed me that I can have a life away from
the business. Okay.
And I know that there's a lot of value in having other people in the business. I know that my capabilities also have a limit. In as much as I try and, of course, push towards learning more things, doing more things, there's always a way to do something better. I think that's a foundation of entrepreneurship in the first place. So I would love for this little idea to morph into something really big. And to have just a business that lives longer than me. I think that would be having a party in heaven, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, those are my guys.
Correct.
I would really love that.
Yeah.
And to create value, again, back to my team members. And because in as much as I say that I don't have anything to show for it, there's families that I've supported, hundreds of families.
Correct.
That I've supported and would maybe not have what they do because of, I've had an employee who came to me and was like, thank you, I've built a house in upcountry. And he recently bought a car, and I'm like, okay, that's
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite something. So have I answered your question?
Arrive alive.
Arrive alive, yeah.
Yeah.
With value.
With
so
value.
I need to be able to extract value. I have one of my board members who's constantly saying, you need to extract value. You've been so selfless with Spez. It's time for you to extract value. So it's allowed me to also dream outside of Spez. So like I said, the lodge in Nanyuki, the one in Kisumu, that's outside of, yeah.
Okay. We are arriving alive at the end of this conversation. No, but this has been amazing. I think you're such a good storyteller. I can see. I haven't even seen your Instagram page, but
It's
I can only
lit.
imagine
It's
how
lit.
lit it must be. You're such a good storyteller,
that,
by the
yeah.
way, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank
And I
you.
don't know what you feel like you tell your entrepreneurial self, the younger one, or what lessons what wisdom would you impart on your younger entrepreneurial self and your current one and your future one?
Gosh, all three.
All three.
Pick whichever you want.
My old, maybe I'll say my younger one. Quit now. I'm joking.
It's like run.
Yeah,
quit.
no. What should I tell my younger entrepreneurs? Maybe Esmeralda is going to be a wild journey.
It's okay.
Hang on and enjoy the ride.
Okay. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Wago.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think it's all. We can hear people looking at you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Absolutely. This has been amazing. And to our guys, please keep subscribing. Keeps us going. The likes, comments, please engage. We have polls going on in our community. So I think there was a story around our community and calling them the Plug Nation. So we're still working that out. So let's keep going. Yeah, and this has been a treat, and thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
This has been pretty cool, and I'm sure we are looking forward to having you back here again. I feel there's a lot more we can actually talk about down the line and how this year is going to be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And it's a wrap.